Our second presentation is going to be concerning the transformation of St. Michael's Drive. Michelle, I think all of you, or many of you know, was the former president of the ZIA Chapter. She is currently the Assistant Secretary of the LAI Board. She has recently accepted a full-time position with Circ Energy. I understand she'll be moving, but we're going to keep her busy no matter where she goes. And she's a subject matter expert in alternative energy, sustainability. If you look at her biography of what she's worked on, she's learned how to obtain energy from algae ponds and windmills and solar panels, you name it. If you want to have alternative energy, this is who you need to talk to. She has her JD from the Vermont Law School and MA from the University of Chicago. I have to say, when the ZIA Chapter came to this with this proposal, we said, Santa Fe? Santa Fe is this rich, affluent community up in the mountains. What do they need help from us for? And the chapter had gone out and found a really desolate, largely abandoned commercial stretch. And I think what you're going to hear here is a story of how do you take some of that seed money from LEF, combine it with some local chapter energy, and bring in some partners to really pull it off. And the punchline on this project is we gave them a nice grant, and they brought in so many partners, they were able to bring $8,000 back to us so we could fund another project. So we love that kind of cost-benefit analysis. Michelle, please come up.
Thank you, everybody. So this project started when our chapter decided to have sort of a brainstorming session among our members. Who are we as ZIA LAI? What do we want to do? We enjoy each other's company so much at lunches, but is there something more we wanted to do? We've got these smart people, these great qualifications, these great histories. How can we contribute, and what matters most? And what we considered and what we felt mattered to the folks in the room was this strip of St. Michael's, which John described. Now, St. Michael's Boulevard is all of 1.25 miles long. It's 7 lanes wide, if you can imagine such a thing in Santa Fe. And the traffic just zooms on by. And it was developed in the 50s, and so it's sort of, you know, strip mall kind of development, lots and lots of parking, lots and lots of asphalt. And so, you know, we all kind of felt like there's a real opportunity there. There's also a real challenge there because with all of these strip malls, you have tenants, you have long-term tenants, you have property owners who have investments that they've made. And there's, you know, it's not like greenfield development. There's a question of how to incentivize those property owners, how to incentivize those tenants to do something more with their parking lots besides just parking cars on them. So again, just real quickly, you can see pictures of St. Michael's Drive there on the right. Lots and lots of asphalt. And a real concern and a real interest among residents of Santa Fe to do something better with this ground. It's right in the heart of Santa Fe, Midtown we call it, but you see just a history of interest from the city, from grassroots groups, from UNM, which is the university. Lots of people interested in seeing something better. What more can we do with St. Michael's? And what we learned from looking at all these studies is consistent needs came up. Most importantly, housing. Santa Fe needs more, not quite affordable housing, but not the expensive housing. Something that can be accessible for workers, for students, for real people. And that's something that is definitely a need in Santa Fe. You can see some of the other concerns there at the bottom. How do we make this area more bicycle friendly, more pedestrian friendly? How do we incorporate public transportation? How do we incorporate a nightlife, for example? All of these things that are now absent. Again, from the community efforts, what would you like to see in St. Michael's? And again, we were seeing really consistent things that the community said, this is what we would like to see in St. Michael's. And so from those community events and from the different things that took place over the years, the vision that came forward, again, you see pedestrians, you see bike friendly, you see outdoor cafes, all of these things are what the community wanted. How do you get from the strip mall asphalt environment to something like that? And again, here's another picture of the vision, more green space. How can we incorporate more pedestrian accommodations within things that are right now just parking lots. How can we infill those parking lots with apartments, with housing? And so, fortunately, in 2014, the mayor of Santa Fe was very interested in this. He had an asset development director who was one of our members, Matt O'Reilly, and he thought that he knew what incentives would actually work for the property owners, for tenants, to encourage this redevelopment. So he created a draft ordinance and branded the area the Midtown Link, that's the local innovation corridor, and it became a proposal for an overlay district. And so that was step one, is coming up with a draft ordinance that is really smart. But step two is where we came in as ZIA LAI. So we had some of our developer members each selected one of the properties along St. Mike's, and the actual property, and the developer then said, if I got my hands on this property, what would I do with it? Would I demolish all the buildings that are on it? There's a sewer line running down the middle. Does that mean I would put something here or there? Would I go in and put ground level retail with housing on top? What would I do with this property today with no incentives, with the market reality that we have? How could I sell it to my board of directors, that sort of thing? So we started with pro formas for 3 actual pieces of ground along St. Michael's. We then got those pro formas, the developer team in the room, John Nye was in the room, and Matt O'Reilly from the city. And Matt unveiled the different incentives that he was suggesting. And it allowed us, with those pro formas up on a big screen, to kind of, slide the knobs and say, okay, if we go up 10 feet higher, does that allow what? If we waive the utility expansion charges, what does that do for my return on investment? And so we were able to take these actual pieces of property, these actual proposed development projects through the pro formas, and play with them. And through that process, we were able to arrive at an understanding of what incentives matter, what incentives make a real difference, what incentives actually got the developer teams excited. And it was really amazing for me to sit in there and watch people go from kind of a skepticism to sort of an excitement about the opportunity that was unfolding with these incentives. And it allowed Matt, the city representative, to refine and further develop those incentives to the point where, when the ordinance was actually made final and taken out to the city council, it was good. It was good, and it had the backing of LAI, which was a neutral group, was a sophisticated group, and it was something that really had some credibility and added just a level of oomph to the ordinances that moved forward through the process. It went to something like 6 different city council committees, had to go to planning commission, then up to council. Our members showed up and testified in support, and ultimately we got it passed. So it was a very exciting thing. In terms of the details of the ordinance, I'm not sure that's as important as the process that we were involved in. But basically, it's meant to promote residential development. There are different incentives that come to the table, as John was saying. One of them is a streamlined process. Another one is a lot of the fees, permit fees, utility expansion charges, things like that, are waived or reduced. And so it's really a great tool. And we can get you all of these details if you're interested in exploring a project on St. Michael's. And I wanted to give an update. In the past 12 months, since I reported to you all last, as John was saying, we have seen the completion of the first project in the Midtown linked to use the incentives, and it's a senior housing project, so residential, what we wanted. And it's the first, and there's meanwhile a lot of excitement and energy and discussion, and so we'll see more, but it's going to take time. It's going to take time. Second, our chapter, the ZIA Chapter, created a Roadrunner Award. We took inspiration from the Skyline Award. Thank you, Jim Fawcett, for helping us think through some of that. You see the beautiful Nambe plaque that was presented to, that's Mayor Alan Weber, and Matt O'Reilly, they're sharing the award. Me, and then John Mahoney was one of our developers who worked on the project as well. What was really significant about presenting this award is that this is our new mayor in Santa Fe. The project was the ordinance was passed under the prior mayor. We now have a new mayor, and it was really important to us to make sure that he understood how important this project was and to support the project as it moves forward through his tenure and even beyond that. So he was all pumped up, and we were very excited to present the award to him and to Matt. And then the third thing that's happening, and this is kind of our vision for getting the word out there, is we are working in collaboration with the Santa Fe Association of Realtors to develop a website that is specifically for the Midtown link. So if you can envision sort of like an aerial flyover, and you say, hey, look at this property right here, this big swath of opportunity. Click on it, it'll give you contact information for how to get a hold of the property owner or the realtor or so forth, tell you what the incentives are, show you these kind of things, so that it can be a real user-friendly tool for people who are outside of Santa Fe who may want to have a project in Santa Fe. To get to that point, and we're using some LEF funds for this website, we also needed our chapter website to be up and running, and so that was developed this year. It's not quite online yet, but it is beautiful and ready to go. So we're very excited about continuing this project forward. So we definitely want to say thank you to LEF, because without that grant, it would have been harder to pull this off. And thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. I think this is a great example of some seed money empowering a local chapter to go out and do something that most likely might not have ever happened. So, and this was another cost-effective study. They got the realtors so excited and the city so excited that they were able to give us $8,000 of our grant money back too. So this, I'm giving you an idea here of, if you get other parties involved, we like to be the seed capital, and we love to have this stuff coming back. So good, thank you. Do we have time for just a couple questions?
I'm Jim Fawcett from the Los Angeles chapter. Hi, Michelle. What's the most important thing you learned from the project?
I think the important thing was the collaboration. It was the fact that it's not just a smart person at the city, but it was a smart person at the city who also worked hand in hand with the business community and the development community and knew how important it was to have that professional support for the project. But we also knew that we had to trust him in terms of working with the city councilors, for example. And so if anyone tries to replicate this, I think there's not a cookie cutter one size fits all, but definitely it was all of us together moving this forward, trusting each other, working hard, having that vision and that goal together.
Great. Was there any ancillary benefit aside from the output of the study that you experienced? I mean, side benefits that you didn't perhaps expect?
Well, what comes to mind, Jim, this is kind of funny. When we started the project, we thought we're going to have to pay our developers because they're really busy, and we want them to take this seriously, and it's going to take the time to develop these pro formas. So we expected that's where part of the grant money would go, would be to compensate professionals for their time. Everybody was so delighted after they'd rolled up their sleeves, done the work. I think everybody went into that group meeting where we fiddled with the pro formas, thinking, okay, I'm going to bill for this. Well, everybody came out and said, that was so much fun. That was so cool. That was so exciting. And all I want to do is build something in St. Michael's now. And so that was really fun. That was really, I think for me, the most fun part of the project was to see how people one by one got sold on this ordinance, this location, this dream, this vision, and let's make it happen.